Cool. It's July 29th or 30th, depending on where you are. And this is Plan Stage Weekly. So no updates or anything. But it looks like Kushal via Donald has a demo.
I am up first, huh?
You are.
I'm very unprepared tonight. I apologize. But we'll see. Here, hold on one second. See what happens. All right, demo. Oh, actually, this is a cool demo. They're all cool demos, but this one I enjoyed playing around with. Kushal worked on the front end of the new creation form for requirements. Previously, when you created when you clicked on the new requirement button, it would pop up with the inline creation there. We decided to move it to the sidebar. Nick's put in a lot of work on the design of that. Move it to the sidebar so that we could add, we can add more things to it. I think up next, because right now it's just title. Up next will be description and a checkbox that I don't remember what the checkbox is. But other things will be added to that eventually. Okay, on to the demo. So here I am. It's not on GitLab.com yet. So I'm running locally off of Kushal's branch. And the backend is not, actually, no, I take that back. It just, the MR hasn't been merged in yet. Okay, new requirement. See how it opens on the side. Let's see if it works all the way through. And no. All right, so maybe it's not hooked up to the backend yet, but when it is, it'll create it there. I don't recall. I think editing now happens on the sidebar also, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
From the list page?
From the list.
It opens the sidebar to edit. That's cool.
Yeah.
When Nick was showing this to me earlier on this, presumably on the same branch, it actually added it to the list.
So
yeah, did you like migrate or migrate the database?
I thought I had the latest, but here, let me try once more.
Maybe Nick just got lucky.
Maybe. Yeah, I could just be. Yeah, it could just be an issue with my GDK. So let's just assume it works and it's beautiful. All right. Questions, comments? Cool. On to Simon for charts.
All right, let's do it. I too will be demoing from localhost. Should we just assume that if you're demoing on .com, then you can call that out? I did some charts stuff this week. This is Milestone Charts currently. And get out of there, Zoom UI. All right, so there was a couple of things I changed here. One is these dates were kind of ugly on the x-axis here. And you had this average and max, which I think is questionably useful information. You don't really care what the average number of things is, or do we? Anyone have any takes on that? I basically look at the shape of these lines and think, cool. So we did some work here, some stuff happened here. And then we look at the burn up chart and think, actually we added a bunch of scope at that point. So that's fine. That's the information I get rather than looking at these numbers. So come on, top of Zoom UI. Just manages to be in the way, no matter where you put it. And the other one was if you have a burn up or burn down chart with kind of 0 things, then you were getting these sub 1 units. That's 200 milli units. And we didn't really care about that, fractions of an issue or fractions of a weight. So this affects milestones and iteration charts. We now just have whole numbers on the y-axis here. We have human readable dates, because that's how we like to read dates. And we just have the axis labels without the average and max numbers. So there's some just little chart cleanups there. And then the thing that I was actually supposed to do was adding iterations charts to the iteration report page. And these are some with fake data. I haven't connected this to the GraphQL endpoint, which is coming soon, but this will give burn down and burn up charts. We'll just be adding them both at the same time because that's how it's going to work out. And that is the end of this demo. Anyone have questions, feedback, comments? Wonder why this 0 is cut off at the edge here?
I think it's great. I was not wondering why the 0 was cut off, but
You are now.
Do you have an answer to that, Simon?
I might have been zoomed in. I do not have an answer. That's a mystery for next time.
No one noticed it, and now that's all we can notice.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's, and then we also notice it's both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That actually says 22C. That's a different way of formatting the year. So we say 20
Alternate
years
universe
plus
for
20 centuries.
2020.
Does that, the format of that date change with localization? Like it says 7th of August because, you know, in the, I think in British colonial places, we tend to say the date and the month and the year. And
Yes.
with America, it's month, day, year. And so, I mean, here you've got it, you know, a different way, which is, some would say more correctly. So does that change based on your localization? So that was a fight that Concord's doing.
Not presently. We just go for, part of the reason that I changed to using the 3-digit date here instead of just the number was we previously did just have the numbers and people were confused by this.
Hard to read, yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's
also I like
pretty weird.
ISO A601, so.
Yeah, I did as well, but humans, other people, sometimes prefer dates with letters in them. We don't currently localize dates anywhere that I'm aware of. There's a way to do it that we can start using, which will just say use the like default preferred date of the system locale. But in the meantime, we're just going to format this way for everybody. It'll translate the month to their language, I believe. But this is just consistent with the other places we display dates on iterations. Excellent question, Charlie.
Thank you. Well, thank you.
Hi, I can see you now. I was just talking to my own screen. Who is up
great.
next?
Thank you,
Thanks.
Simon. I was up next, so I linked in the Slack discussion that Donald started yesterday. It may be resolved, like you all may have enough information, but I thought since Charlie's here and since Flory's here and Donald, wondering if there's anything else to discuss from that or the threads that Donald created below that particular Slack post.
I did want to have a talk about how we are going to deal with this nested pagination concept generally. I don't have a specific topic on it though, so I should maybe think about it more before bringing it up in a group call. Mainly, my main thoughts on it have been on the grouping iterations issues, which I can add a link to, but just when we have a list of projects, each with a list of issues, how best to interact with that to load more issues. Like whether we just have load more sections for each or how pagination should work. Could you do infinite scroll with that kind of nested sections that each have a list of issues in them? Does anyone not understand at all what I'm talking about? Or
I understand. I'm trying to see if I have an opinion from a product or UX perspective.
There's been some back-end discussion about how that's going to work on the back end. And I think Heinrich had some good input there as well. You Yeah, no, it's a tricky one. I've been mostly focused on getting the backend stuff for the initial iteration finished. So I haven't been as engaged as I'd like to be on that. But I can point to some places where there's been discussion.
Great.
This is really similar to a recommendation I talked about with Alexis, but I don't see her comment in the Slack thread, so maybe somebody could ping her. But yeah, it's really similar to what I've recommended with Alexis in terms of the iterations. I like it.
Cool. Are we comfortable with that first? Actually, 2 points. To Simon's comment about nested pagination, because that's an issue that we're going to have to solve outside of just swim lanes, right? Because there are other things that we're using nested or going to have to use some type of nested pagination. So I'm assuming all the GraphQL whizzes are currently looking at that, right? Or there's a discussion from a few people on it, I think, within the issue.
I think the current sort of state of it, and this is, we've just been kind of thinking about it from mostly, how do we just get some sort of straw man going so that we can, some sort of suggestion. And I think we would load the first sort of N epics, whatever that is, because we can get all the epics that, or some set of the epics that are, that there are issues that are in that board, if that makes sense. So we call that epic groupings. So we get the first, like, say, X of those epics, say first 5 or something, and then within that, we can paginate the lists. And the trouble is that we don't know, it's very difficult and complex to get all of those things at once. So it's like how much in each one. So we can get the first X issues of each list within a single epic, and it becomes like it's a very large number of requests, or at least a very large number of things to paginate. But I think once it's loaded, it becomes okay, because if somebody wants to paginate, they can select a list that they want to keep scrolling down on, kind of like what we do for lists currently. But I'm not sure if that's, from a UX perspective, the right thing to do. But I think that's kind of the back-end thinking at the moment. I welcome thoughts from UX on that.
I'm personally having a hard time visualizing what the behavior would be. So I can't really give any input unless I see a rough, like, spike working. Okay.
I don't think we're far away from backend being able to deliver those things. And then, I mean, really the front end has so much work that's ready, but we can't, I think Flori can probably speak to that we can't really do anything with it until the back end is kind of ready. And so, yeah, back end's quite close, I think, but I don't know if the pagination is something that's straightforward.
So adding to that, the pagination in this case is complex, obviously. And what's been going on is that we don't even have the endpoint yet merged just to fetch issues or group epics, like just the basic stuff without pagination. It's not merged yet anyway. I do have a POC on the front end that uses WIP endpoints, which are not ready completely, but like the basic implementation is there, sort of. And then, so my idea about pagination, my idea comes from a performance concern that I had, because originally what I wanted to do was to fetch issues by list ID. And it makes sense on classic boards, but it turns out it doesn't make sense on swim lanes because it's epics first and then lists. So what I wanted to do was start by adding an epic ID filter on the fetch list issues. And then it would allow us to do pagination within that context possibly. Like when I suggested it, Heinrich was like, oh yeah, it might work. Might also help for pagination to add that epic ID filter, which helps performance and pagination at the same time. But we are like one iteration behind being able to explore pagination right now. So we need to have the base fetches available, and then we can start exploring pagination options.
Makes sense.
Okay. That makes sense. If we are, so for the first iteration, when we get that endpoint out without, if we didn't have pagination on there, what's the limit at? Is it whatever the default is, so like 20 issues it's going to show, and then we just won't show the other issues?
I don't know what the limit is on the back end, Charlie.
Sorry. I had another conversation happening over here. The 10-year-old. Sorry. I'm really embarrassed, and this is recorded. So sorry. Can I get that again? I'm sorry. The limit on the back end.
Yeah, the limit. Like if we don't have pagination, what's the limit when we
it's
fetch?
100.
100. Yeah, that's.
Now
that's
we
what I
can
thought.
declare that to be different on the type level in GraphQL. So we can say for lists under boards, only get 10 or something, or we can say for so we can declare it on a type and not just on like issues period. We could say for issues under lists, we can get 2000, for example, but for issues elsewhere it would remain to be at 100 or whatever the custom thing is, if that makes sense. So we can customize that particularly for this feature.
I feel like 100 issues in a list would be like a crazy kind of board, but okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the issues that we have for the first iteration, one of the backend issues for the first iteration has to do with pagination. Can we just, I think a limit of 100 is fine, and then we can probably push that that backend issue a couple iterations. I don't think that's a requirement. Like I don't think that's blocking you then, Flory.
No, there are to me, from a front end perspective, there are things that are way more blocking than pagination. I need the basic fetches and like all those basic mutations about issues and being able to move things around are way more blocking than pagination. I feel like if we can fetch the data, we can already progress a lot without pagination. Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So that's 230436. I'm going to move that to a future iteration. Charlie, I think you're assigned to it right now. But if you haven't started working on it, I don't think it's a problem.
Yeah, we can. Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, it was after after we get epics done. Yeah.
Okay. And then we can move the front end iteration to manage pagination from iteration 2 to whatever the iteration after we do the back end work is. Sound good, everyone?
Yes.
Cool. All right. What about the other 1, 2, 3, 4? The other 4 issues that we currently have on the back end side of things? Charlie, do you know, are those issues, like can 4 different engineers work on those 4 different issues, you think? Or is it stuff that you have to take at least multiple of them? You're on mute. You're on mute, Charlie.
I'm doing pretty great today. All right. I'm good at computers. Okay. So yeah, so I remember those 5 ones. I think 3 of them have been taken. I've got 2 of them, and I think Eugenia has 1, and I haven't checked for the other one. It's that Slack conversation doesn't unfurl what they are, so I have to.
I know. I don't know why it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's opening up a new tab.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's totally okay. Yeah, no, it's all good. Yeah, the first one so if I've been assigned to it, it's generally that I've got an in progress merge request that just needs some nudging to get to review. If it's not already done, I'm just double checking expose issues. Yeah, didn't I just click on that one? Okay. And then the epic groupings. Yep. Board pagination. Yep. So that one, okay, that one's not assigned, but that one I think is blocked, as I recall. And then, okay, so the pagination in that can't really happen until we get the actual endpoint. So if someone was going to take an issue, then I think probably epic grouping is the best one to take. And then that means we can parallelize some of the stuff that's blocking everything else. Yeah. So I've seen those 5 ones. Those are the 2 paginations and then exposing everything else. That first one is epic groupings. Okay, so yeah, so the single board lists, the epic groupings, the issues under lists, those 3 things, yeah, they're just ASAP really. And then the 2 pagination ones are after those, the first 2 are done. Yeah, so those 2, and they could be done maybe concurrently or something, or considered concurrently anyway. Yeah, I think that with GraphQL we tend to, we're able to introduce the pagination quite easily because it's already part of the framework, and we can just say add an argument to whatever we have there to be able to resolve them with pagination. So I don't think it's a big ask to do that, but it does involve waiting until those endpoints are actually done. And part of the problem with the backend, just generally, as our GraphQL API gets more fully featured and more complex, that we have n+1s to deal with as well. So we have to make sure that, especially with boards, which basically ties in everything, we have to make sure that we're not introducing performance regressions, especially since we're reworking an existing feature in parallel to this. So yeah, we're just being quite cautious in terms of making sure that we don't affect existing users and functionality.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think before we even want to take on the pagination, I think the mutations should probably come next. So after those 3 issues in the first iteration, I think we should then start working on, like we have the adding epic to issue mutation. There's that one, and then there's a couple other mutations that we should probably take on, and then we can go back, loop back, and take a look.
There's actually way more mutations than that will be required, like all the stuff about manipulating issues and epics and lists, like adding and removing lists as well, because I've been thinking about turning off the ability to do that, but it breaks workflows, and I'm not even sure it's possible because a lot of those actions happen in the top bar, where the filtering is. And it's probably harder to turn off some abilities than just implementing the mutations. So we need, like, I feel like all the manipulation of entities, issues, epics, and lists is probably more urgent than pagination, in my opinion.
I agree.
I also agree.
Charlie, piggybacking off of the N+1 kind of performance concerns you have, as we keep moving along, I'm not advocating this be a priority right away, but I think there's a potential in the swim lane for an epic. If we have 5 epics, each epic has 100 issues or whatever, there's a potential for a lot of overlap. So then we would essentially be requerying the same issues on a different epic. So down the line, maybe there's a way that we can think about limiting the kind of pressure on the back end during those calls.
We fetch by lists, not by epics. We fetch issues by lists and not by epic to avoid that specifically.
But lists could have duplicate issues, right?
Yes, that's a possibility.
So I guess in that point you could have, so currently in our list, so I mean lists are just lenses, right? So you have your list with all your label or assignee or whatever, and so if you have assignee me and you have label, which is awesome, and some issue has assigned to me and label awesome, it will appear in both lists, right? And since we can only have one issue can only have one epic, but it could also have multiple lists within that epic. So I think, is that what you mean? Because we're grabbing by list.
Yeah, I think so. I guess my concern is refetching the same, regardless of its parent, refetching the same issues and then multiplying that by pagination scale, right? Like, I have, like you said, you have like label awesome signed by you, and then we paginate, and then we keep getting that same issue over and over again, and that's probably a lot of pressure on the back end. I'm just starting to dig into this, but it seems like that the complications will start to appear once we hit pagination more. But,
oh yeah. This is one of the reasons why this is such a tricky feature, is because it basically is like, let's take everything Plan does and smush it into one place.
Yeah.
Except for like time logs or something, or iterations, stuff like that.
Right, and the reason I bring that up is looking at the stores on the front end. It's like we just want to reference the issue once, regardless of how many times across the page it's being referenced, to reduce complication.
So I would call that a flyweight pattern type thing.
Okay.
Where you just have like a canonical copy of something, and then something
Sure.
will say, I have ID 6, and I also have ID 6, this other list
Right.
says, and say, oh, ID 6, we know what that is, and it's in the state somewhere. I don't know
Right.
anything about how state is stored in the front end, probably enough to get myself in trouble, so I won't speak to that, but yeah. So kind of having a canonical copy rather than maintaining multiple copies of each one.
Right, and if there's anything we could do to like offload some of that from you on the back end, like maybe we could have that conversation in the future, but just something to think about.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on the time here, Justin. I'm not sure if we can go a little bit over time, or whether I can say one more thing.
I can go over if y'all can go over. This is a worthwhile discussion since we have some key people here. So
you're very kind.
Press on.
Thank you. So one of the reasons why we decided to go for epic groupings rather than being able to say something like, give me all the issues in this list, and then, oh, just tell me what epic they are, and then give me all the info about the epic, is there'd be massive duplication there. So we could do it that way, but I think, Flory, we decided early on that was pretty infeasible for you, and it would be pretty much a nightmare. Yeah, there's a nodding. So in order to have, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was worried about complexity on the back end, and I felt like, well, the complexity has to be taken somewhere, whether it's the back end or the front end, and like having that data structure complexity on the back end, it increases the risk of N+1s plus a duplication of data. Whereas if we deal with it on the front end, like I've been doing, it's just a matter of manipulating the data so that it's in a structure that's easy to be consumed by the front end. So yeah, we've decided to fetch lists, epics, issues per list, and then the front end will mush that all together in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, so that pattern is we're using on to deliver to the back end, or to deliver to the front end, where it's like, here's a list of all of the epics that that the issues in the board are part of.
The thing is also is that swim lanes, for now it's just epics, but in the future we'll have labels, iterations, like whatever, you name it. And if you add that level of complexity on the back end, it's like you make it that much complicated every time. Whereas you solve it once on the front end and the logic is exactly the same every time, just with different entities. So we felt like, considering the fact that we will have other types of swim lanes, it just made sense because of that. Yep.
Great, that's basically all for me, so.
Any other questions on swim lanes?
I don't have any. Donald, anything for me?
No questions. I'll go through that iterations list and move some of the pagination ones out. But I think that's all that. Is everyone okay with at least that first iteration? Like, are we pretty comfortable primarily on the back end with, and I know a lot of it's dependent on how quickly we can get things through the review process, but getting the back end stuff done within a week or so?
I think I will need someone to take the epic grouping issue. And like I say, the solution is written. It's in the MR. It just, I mean, the other hitch is that because of the new way we're doing reviews, I'm getting a boatload of reviews right now. So I'm having trouble to actually get the things that are on my plate finished because I'm trying to unblock other people by doing the reviews for them. So that's a challenge that I'm personally having. And I think it's just the way that they've changed it because it takes the time zone into account. So everyone in the Western US finishes their MRs, puts it to review. And because I'm in APAC and there's only a few of us, we get a disproportionate, I think, number of reviews. I'm not sure if it's 100% happening, but I'm certainly getting a lot. So I think that I either need to put up a red dot to show that I can't have any more reviews in order to finish this, or someone needs to pick it up as well, or maybe both of those things.
I can fully recommend that. Both preemptive red dot, if you know you're going to have stuff to do, and I've just been like putting it up before I have too many reviews, and then I'm like, I'm doing a red dot so I can get like catch up.
Yeah.
And also I've had some when if I do get a deluge of review, my deluge is like 2. So.
Oh golly, I have 7 waiting for
I
me.
get quickly overwhelmed. Yeah. Don't want to deal with that. I find if I have too many, then I'll just say no to a couple. If I say like, I have enough reviews for today, I'm not going to realistically get to this.
I want to make sure that folks aren't blocked waiting for me, only for me to say, oh yeah, by the way, I can't do this in a timely way. So
yeah,
anyway,
if I'm going to say no, then I try to be quick about it. I try not to wait 48 hours and say, oh, by the way, I don't have time to do this yesterday.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good strategy. Yeah, thanks for that. I always feel a bit bad about putting up a red dot because it's basically saying to everyone else, oh, hey, can everyone just do my reviews for me? But I try not to think about it that way because I'm also taking other people's reviews who have red dot, and I don't have a problem with that. So it's just teamwork and all that.
Charlie, the epic grouping one you're talking about, is that the 229149 expose epic groupings on their issue boards via GraphQL?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm happy to just if someone what I might do is just unassign myself and then put into our channels just for someone to take it. And if nobody takes it by a couple of days, I'll just do it.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do that.
I also just wanted to thank you very much for actually putting all that analysis out. It's really helpful, and it's hard to get a picture of what things are on the back end versus the front end, and also by vertical feature slice in that when we've got something with significant technical debt as well. So thank you for doing that.
Sure. Yeah. I'm wondering if we should do that, for kind of these larger features. I think it's helpful, at least for the first couple iterations, just to have it laid out like that, so we can kind of visualize. And I'm sure it helps product because then they can get a better feel for what might or might not make it into a milestone.
Yes, I was about to say this is great, and I'm supportive of doing it more often.
Helps UX too, for what it's worth.
Love it.
Alrighty.
Cool. That's it.
Anyone have?
Unless,
Cool.
yeah, there's other things. Public service announcement. It looks like there's another Family and Friends Day on the 14th. If you didn't see it yet, I just saw something fly through Slack on the corner of my eye, so it's exciting.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
That's very good. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye.